Hello and welcome back. Um, Here is a scene that I've created. Um, for basic movement. So you can see I have this one right here, and if I press the D key or the arrow keys, it will move. If we press spacebar, it will jump. Of course, it does that for some reason, but I know what reason that is. So, in order to fix that, you could just go to here, and remember in the last time you could freeze rotation. So there you go. Rotation is now frozen, so now it can no longer rotate. But I can push this block off and I can go into the abyss, which is pretty cool. Now I want to add a texture to this, so I can always go back to my art and drag this in here. Look how much better that looks. Which of course, if I play it, it's gonna go through the object. Whee! Okay, I'm rather zoomed in for some reason, but I could just resize box like the fixed object, and if you play it, now it's a way bigger object. Now, I want to show you guys the script because I'm going to explain code, which is pretty cool. So here we have the movement script. This is a rather simple script that I use for my 2D platform games. I'm making one right now, and this is essentially the script that I use. I just, of course, modify it a bit from a YouTuber, which I'll find probably right now somewhere. Okay, well, this is the whole script. I'll explain it to you. To those of you that don't know how to use Unity. So basically, let's start right here with this move script that I created right now. It has nothing in it. This is the basic script that you get dealt with as soon as you add a script in Visual Studios. That's why I said the download Visual Studios in the last one. This is what you'll be using for all your programming. As you can see, there are system generics tags, and you usually delete these. They're just basically using tags. You usually delete them, but sometimes when you code, you might need them if you're using like systems and collection scripts. But in my case, I didn't need them, so I just deleted them. Oops. Yeah, you can hide the script if you want to. That's pretty cool. But this is the script that I use, and there's start scripts and there's update scripts. So, and as you can see here, there's a little green thing which says this script is called in the first frame of the update. So basically, when you start playing the game, this will be this will whatever in here will happen on the first frame the game starts up. So right there I have RB get component rigid body 2D. Now remember here, if I have a rigid body connected to here, and if the 2D one, this is basically referencing this in the code. So rigid body 2D is being referenced over here. Now this is a private rigid body 2D. And there's a difference between private and public game objects. Well, not game objects, but public and private game references. As you can see here, public float and public move speed. But if I were to create a public game object, and let's say name it game, say name it game object, and if I click save, Control S to save, and then now there's a game object which doesn't use anything. But as you can see, it's right there because it's public. But if I change this to private. As you can see here, it's gone. That's because it's being hidden from the inspector. That's what's happening. It's being hidden from the inspector. And if you're gonna make a private game object, you always need a reference to the game object. Because right now Unity, if you just keep this like that, it doesn't know what game object you're referencing. But if you want a component and you set a reference to it, like right here, I'm doing private rigid body. That means I want to reference a rigid body, but without having it public, like having it shown in the inspector. But of course, I need a reference to it. So that's when this component comes in. Rigid body, get component 2D. That's basically saying, so you know this rigid body right here, I want to reference it. So this rigid body, I named it rigid body. You can name this whatever you want. RB for rigid body. But this rigid body 2D, you know what this is equal to? This is equal to get component rigid body 2D. So this is get component myself, my rigid body 2D to the script. As you can see here, the script is referencing itself. So it's basically saying, hey, you know the rigid body that, the script that we're enabled to? How about let's get the rigid body from the object that the script is on. So in this, it's the player, and it's enabled to rigid body 2D. That's basically the start function, what I have in the start function. That's basically what the start function does. In the first frame, this will happen. That's rather good. And then this is update. This happens once per frame. Now basically what this means is that this will update each frame that your computer draws. Basically, this will call an update once per frame. So each frame that you're playing is whatever happening in that frame is happening in here. So whatever you want to happen here will happen once per frame. Now, there's a way around this, and it's called fixed update. Now, fixed update basically allows you to fix a update function. So this will happen, I think it was like 50 times a minute or 50 times a second. I forgot which one. This will call a function 50 times a second or minute. I think it's a second, and then it will call it on a basically fixed time frame. Right now that's not enabled anything, but that's what the basically the Unity functions mean, and using Unity engine. That's basically what this means. So save this. Okay, now let's see what I have here. Now this may look confusing, but it's actually pretty simple. What I have, what happens here. So basically, the first thing that the script is saying variable. You want a variable, which is basically one of these, except you don't declare it. You don't declare it. It's a what is it called? A local variable. Yeah. So a local variable essentially means in whatever um in whatever void you're putting it in, it will only be local to that void. So in here, if I say move this little script here to start um movement, the variable that I named it will not be called here because I moved it out of the local area. But it's variable, and then I named it movement. I mean, you could put anything here. You could do whatever, and it'll still be that. But anyways, I named the movement, and then basically what I'm saying here is equal to. It's saying the variable movement is equal to input dot get axis horizontal. So it's basically getting the axis of this variable. So it's basically the variable is being equal to the axis horizontal. So this is basically the horizontal axis information. And then all you do right here, it's transform, which means the own player's transform dot position plus equals to new vector 3. Um, transform dot position plus equals to new vector 3, so that means it basically transform dot position is plus equal to this whole script, saying that, and you call a new vector 3. And calling a new vector 3, a vector 3 can hold three like basically variables or information. Now you can see right here there's movement 0 0. That essentially means that this is equal to the horizontal movement axis, and the other 0 axes. That's basically what that's saying. So we can see here vector 3 move it. You could also put this to vector 2, but vector 3 is more useful when you're dealing with things things like movement and physics. Well, movement and rotation and scale. This is basically what vector 3 is mainly used for. And then of course you have 0 0, and then it's multiplied by time dot delta time, and then times movement speed. So this is basically saying that whatever was here, I want it to multiply it by time dot delta time. Now time dot delta time basically says that this will, because right now in the update function, this will determine on how many frames are drawn. So if you're running on a better computer, multiple frames will be drawn per second. But if you're in on the slower computer, only few frames will be drawn per second. So basically, this is saying that, okay, I want to multiply this whole little thing times time that other time, which basically means that it will move the same even on a slower computer. And then I will also multiply that times movement speed, so you can actually have control of what speed your character is going at. So that's that. And of course, right here, this is the jump function, a whole jump function right here. Now, this is basically saying if input.get button down, on the Unity's way of saying if the button is pressed down, if input down button jump. Now, jump isn't a button on the keyboard, but it is if you go to edit and project settings, and you go to input manager, you have axes. Now, these basically mean key codes on the keyboard. Now, as you can see here, we have jump, and jump's name is the positive button that you press is spacebar. So that's basically what it's saying. If spacebar is pressed, then rigid body, the add force is equal to new vector 2. Now rigid body, as you can see right here, private rigid body is equal to get component. So basically what that's saying is if rigid body is there, if this whole statement is true, the add force, Unity's way of adding a certain force to an object, new vector 2, since there's only two ways you can add force, like up or down. I mean not up or down, up or sideways. This goes 0, jump force or jump force. So it's basically saying do nothing for this axis, the horizontal, but only add it up force. And then the comma force mode 2D dot impulse. Now this is very important because you want to make it so that it'll be impulsed and it won't slowly go up. Force mode dot 2D impulse. So it'll happen all at once. And then of course you have this, which is basically saying that you can only do it when you're on the ground. So this is and math F, which is Unity's way of math and calculations. Dot abs, which is basically saying abs rigid body dot velocity dot y. So this is basically doing some calculations here about this. So if this is all good and stuff, um, it's kind of hard to explain. But rigid body from the player character dot velocity, so it's velocity dot y. So its up direction is is less than 0.001 f. That means it can jump. But if it's not, if this is higher than it, that means this thing will not be able to jump. Then it's y velocity. And you have the f there because f deals with things like decimals. So if I took the f off of here and if I saved it, of course, literal type double cannot be implemented. Convert to type float. Use f to create a literal of the type. In literal. So like there's a such thing called a double in Unity, and that basically means that this thing is confusing it with a double. Like literal type cannot implement it to type float because it's a double. It has decimals. So basically, if you use type F, that will basically mean that you are allowed to do decimals now. So that's basically the whole movement script, and I've explained a little bit of programming. But of course, now press play. This can be pushed off, and you can go along with it. That's rather cool. Because you can see, you're going off into the void forever. Now, of course, you can always maximize on play. Press play. It fits my full screen. You can still push this off. You can jump around. It's pretty cool. But what if I want to add some more graphics to this? Wait, let me find the screen. Okay, now this is rather cool. Let's add some more graphics. So I'll be right back. Be adding some graphics to this. Okay, well we're back, and this is the whole thing. As you can see, I have a player object looking like a robot, and I have a grid tile map. Now let me talk about the tile map first. So here is the whole thing, and if you create a new object and you go to UI, well, not UI, if you go to 2D and then press tile map, a grid creates for you, and then you're able to do whatever you want with it. You can paint on it. You can do really whatever. You could do whatever you want with it. As you can see here, I could just take this and then paint whatever shape I want to. And I could click play, and then boom, there's logic, there's physics. It actually gets collision at terrain world. No, we delete that. And now, as you can see here, when we play it, objects fall into the little grass, and the reason for that is because I have a tile map right here. It's because I put on the tile map collider. Now this basically means whatever object you paint on it, it will have collision and able to hit other objects. So that's better. But now if I play the scene, we all collide with the tile map. It's rather cool. You could put in any other objects you want, but in order to get this little screen, you would have to go to Window, 2D, and then Tile Palette, and then this little screen will pop up somewhere like that, and then you could put it right next to the expected. And then of course you choose your sprite that you want to put. Right here I have my sprite, and then you drag it on here, and then you create a little thing right here, and you create an active tile map, which is basically this. Right now I have it inserting their ground. So this is my ground palette, and I can create a new one. New palette, select folder, and then I can switch between the two. Drag in objects or textures here. That's rather cool. So now if I can play the scene again. And then that object hits the ground. But now if I move over here and I jump on this, my object gets selected. And that's very cool because now we have a little enemy object or something in there. I can still move the object like usual. There, bye bye object, and then trip over this, you get destroyed. Now this is a very simple collision, like detection script. All you do is just delete the object. You don't subtract any health or anything. But it's very simple, and I don't remember if I covered prefabs, but right now I will. So if you drag the object into the project view, you create a prefab, and then if you could drag the prefab and drag it anywhere you want to. It's basically creating a copy of what you just created. Now this object has the script on it and everything. So if I would jump over here, I go jump. That's the annoying part of this not. That's the annoying part of having to couple together. Oh, I can't. Let me move this in here. But now if I can go towards it. Why now? Okay, I'm just kidding. But anyways, that won't work. Basically because I have a different script on it. So the reason why that won't work is because this is looking. So if you look at my code, this is saying void on collision enter another Unity based variable. I mean not variable, another Unity based function right here. On collision enter collision 2D call. I named it this. You can name it whatever you want. You can name it whatever you want, and it would still be this. And I'm basically saying if collision dot the game object that I just hit dot name is equal to spikes, this would destroy the player object in 0.005 seconds. Now this is dot name. I want this to hit any object, it will be destroyed. So I could put this to dot tag, another Unity based thing. So if this hits the collision game object tag is equal to spikes, this thing will destroy the player game object. So let me go to the spikes prefab, and then let me tag it. Let me add a tag. We add a new one. Spikes, and then spikes. Now if I go back here, now if I hit this one, I get destroyed. But now if I go over here and hit this one, wait, is that one not tagged? What is happening? Okay, this is why I'm not a good programmer. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just not. Wait, I'm pretty sure it's Oh, I did save it. Okay, well, see, that's not my fault. That's just me forgetting to save. Boom. Okay, it works. I was like, what am I doing wrong? No, it's just me forgetting to save it. But it works. Now, if you hit the object, it will destroy you. It's better. As you can see, we're like forming out a fully fledged level. If I go to the tile palette, I go to ground, I select this. I can create more ground over here. Now this could be like a level, game level. Move up, down. But the camera doesn't move with the player object. Now there's an easy way to fix this. You clearly just drag the camera under the object. That's the most simplest way to fix this. I actually used a different script for my platformer games, but this is like the easiest, simplest way to fix that problem. But the gap is too small, so let me make that bigger. Oh yeah, I forget. Okay. Now we just drag this over here. Now loop. Yep, no renders cameras. This is kind of like a little game now. Go run over here, jump over spikes. Then you jump over this gap, and you made it to this object. That's rather cool. I think so. That is better, but this is all I have time for. So, see you later. Bye.